Hi, this is the Spooky Owls, and my name's David Saunders, and today our guest is MJ Dickson, the founder of Sage Paranormal. How are you, MJ?
I'm really good, David. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you going in all the lockdown?
Loving it. Absolutely loving it. I have all the time in the world now to catch up on so many projects I've been wanting to do for about 5, 6 years. So I'm
So,
cracking
we
on with it.
so we're going to have quite a lot to talk about today. Then, if you've got a few projects. Now, MJ is a paranormal investigator, psychic medium, writer, and a paranormal television producer who's based in Warwickshire, which is a very lovely part of England. You've been on quite a number of paranormal TV shows, and often I turn on the television, especially on Amazon. There seems to be quite a few and around the place on where you pop up as a guest, sort of investigator. Can you maybe tell us a little bit about how you came? Not so much that, because that's the sort of glitzy star type stuff of the paranormal. About how you actually got interested in ghosts.
Okay. Well, it started when I was really, really young. My mum is a psychic medium as well, as are most of the ladies in our family. And so it is hereditary. And I grew up taking after my dad, who was a military man, so really straight and narrow. And he always taught me to look at the logical side of things. And then I had my mom with sort of the spiritual, airy, fairy side of things. And things would happen in our house, really bizarre things that I couldn't explain. And my mum would kind of laugh it off as, oh, it's your grandmother. And my dad would just brush things off. And I couldn't understand how my dad, being such a logical person, he never once argued with my mum about whether or not it was paranormal. And so growing up, I looked at both sides of things. And the moment I was old enough to venture off into the world and start traveling and all of that, I wanted to develop my own mediumship more. And I wanted to know more of the scientific side. Why are these things happening? How are there so many different layers of energy, so many different spirits in one location, that sort of thing. And I started backpacking the world with my husband. I arrived in England, fell in love, and decided, you know what, this is where it's going to happen. I felt really drawn to it. So about 11 years ago, I started investigating full time in England.
So you're originally from South Africa. What is the scene? I always ask this question because people ask me the same. Being from Australia, they say, "Well, what's the paranormal scene like in Australia?" And I say, "Well, I really can't tell you because I really didn't get involved in it until I came here to England."
It's
What is ghost hunting like in South Africa?
non-existent. So it's still very taboo in South Africa. You can't really go around saying that you're a psychic medium that does tarot reading because they will stone you to death. People are, it's still very, very hush hush. It's very much against certain cultures in South Africa. So it is seen very much as playing with the devil, anything to do with investigating the paranormal. So you don't bring it up. You tend to kind of keep it under wraps. We didn't do readings or anything for people outside of our family at all. My whole life growing up, it was very much kept under wraps. And then that was the main thing about when I got to England. So psychic mediums, we do this weird thing where we can pick up on each other's energy. And I have a bad habit of walking up to somebody and going, you're like me. And you can just tell. And I walked up to this woman when I first moved over here. And I was like, oh, excuse me, ma'am, but you're like me. You do tarot reading. And I was all hush hush about it. And she was like, oh, yeah, would you like my business card? And I stood there going, what? What do you mean your business card? Like you advertise? And it was amazing to me because it is literally non-existent in South Africa. They love all the paranormal TV shows and things, but heaven forbid you do it yourself.
Yeah, I can imagine. So when you came here, what was besides that, and you decided to do this professionally? How did you jump from sort of the amateur, as something that you wouldn't even mention, never mind try to sell, to saying, here I am, I'm going to do this for a living?
um, I made a lot of mistakes along the way, but one of the main things I found is just learning, just researching as much as you can. I mean, if you're going to be in any profession, you need to know what you're talking about. And if you can't explain it to a 6-year-old, then you don't understand it yourself.
Yeah.
And I I went to every paranormal convention around the world that I could. I saved up as much money as I could. I was running a restaurant at the time. So I would save up as much cash as I could and just buy a plane ticket, get a ticket to a convention, and sit and listen to every lecture. I was literally like a sponge. I would just soak it all in. But through doing that, I met the most amazing people in the paranormal field, and I've had the opportunity to learn from the best and, become friends with them. And yeah, it was weird going from, hey, this is a great hobby, to, hey, I'm actually getting paid for this. Because a lot of people, especially in England, I find this, a lot of people, if you say your profession or you are a professional paranormal investigator, they all jump on this bandwagon of, oh, there's no such thing. It's the unknown. How can you be a professional in the field? True. It is the unknown, and we are still trying to figure it out. But I'm being paid to do that. Therefore, it is my profession. So it went from attending conventions and having conversations with people, the organizers of the events, and really learning and proving that I know what I'm talking about, put your money where your mouth is kind of thing. And people then started asking me to do talks at paranormal conventions. And once I started being a lecturer on the convention circuit, that's when you start having people in the television industry that kind of take note of you and how you put yourself across and how you, explain things. Are you good enough to explain things on camera to the general public? And from there, I was contacted to help out on Paranormal Lockdown when they did the UK season with Nick and Katrina. I got a phone call from them asking if I had any really good locations. And so I was hired as the production location consultant for the season, and the bug bit me. The moment I was able to start working on the production side of things, I didn't go and study to be a producer or anything like that. It kind of fell in my lap, and I have Nick largely to thank for that. But it just clicked with me. I'm an organizer. I love putting things together. And it kind of just clicked. And then from there, obviously, once your name is out there on one program, the moment people want any other programs to come to the UK, it was very much a, hey, call MJ. She's a fixer. She'll fix everything up for you, produce everything, and then you fly over, film everything, and Bob's your uncle. You have your show. And yeah, so I just started getting contacts through the industry from various people, and anytime they were looking for something, my name was mentioned. So there was a steady progression into where I am today.
So you became the go-to person for spooky things here in Britain.
I didn't intentionally, but I did.
How do you find doing it? I mean, obviously we all know how an investigation goes when you're doing it without cameras. You're doing it for the investigation or for the fun or whatever it might be. When you have to perform, that's what I've always thought. How that must be quite stressful, I imagine.
I've been really lucky. The shows that I've worked on have actually been very real. There are various shows out there where it's like, oh, you didn't seem surprised enough. Can you just do that again? Which, luckily for me, I've not come across that yet. And I think it is because I am very steadfast in my beliefs when it comes to how you portray the paranormal. I don't want people going, oh, there's another screaming for no reason instead of debunking person on TV. For instance, Paranormal Captured that I did for Sky TV, when we came to the first episode, filming the first episode, and I had to do the investigation, it was myself, the director, who was also the main camera person, and another lady doing sound. So it was just the three of us. And the woman who owned the location, so the four of us ladies all together. And it came down to doing the investigation side, and I was like, okay, so what do you want me to do? How do you want to do this? And the director looked at me and she went, we're a fly on the wall. We don't exist. You investigate the way you normally would, and whatever you would say during an investigation, bar any swear words, just kind of do the same thing. And it was very relaxed. It was a lot easier than I expected. It was very real. And so far, that's been my experience all
So
round.
you must have been lucky though to give something that people would want to see though, because in my experience, it really is sitting there for hours on end, waiting for something to happen, which may not happen. So even the most real paranormal TV show must have something that goes on just to give you something to see, unless it's here's a photo of David sitting writing, I heard a creak, tick.
Yeah.
How do you do that? How do you make a paranormal TV show that's entertaining?
I think in today's day and age, paranormal TV, paranormal pop culture in general, has progressed so much in the last 10 years. 10, 12 years ago, you had people going, oh my God, there's a voice, it's an EVP, wow! Even if it was not very clear at all. Whereas now, people go, oh, that's not a Class A EVP, I can do better than that. So it is more challenging. But having said that, when nothing happens, it's okay to say nothing's happened. And people watching these shows will still go, well, hey, at least it's real. You don't have to be a performing monkey. If nothing happens, nothing happens. The difficult part is trying to find locations that are not only aesthetically pleasing, but that are active as hell. So that
Yeah.
you're kind of guaranteed to at least get one thing, be it one EVP or one interesting spike on REM pods or whatever experiment you're doing. At least if you try 10 different experiments and one of them works, it's still entertaining. People still want to watch it.
How are you finding with because there are so many shows nowadays, and because there are, like on Amazon, I think there's dozens and dozens. You could just go. I could be watching them all day if I wanted to. You must have had so much. There can't be many places left that haven't been investigated. Big buildings and the different places.
It is really difficult, especially being a fixer, being a production coordinator that has to find these locations. And every single show is going, we want places that are, more than 80,000 square foot, and they have to be abandoned and they have to look creepy, and nobody can have ever investigated it before. I'm like, really?
Yeah, you're not going to find
Or,
that. Not the
yeah.
amount. I mean, we look at sometimes on the Spooky Isles. We look at we always look at different sort of historic properties, pubs and hotels around Britain, and the amount of paranormal TV shows that have done that place now. Each of them must have had 3 or 4 times where it's certain show here, certain show there. There,
Yeah.
there can't really be any of the big ones left.
Not really, no. And the places that are left, they've realized that they can charge an absolute fortune just to scare people away. So there have been a few locations which would be perfect that have never been done before. And you want to book it for 24 hours or 48 hours of filming, and they go, yeah, that'll be £20,000 or 30,000. There's no ways you could pay that for an episode. I mean, we've made episodes on a budget of £1,500, and that's it.
Do you
That's
think
what you
that?
get.
Do you think they've just priced themselves? They're being silly and they've priced themselves out the market?
Yeah, they definitely do it just to scare people off. And you
Do you,
can imagine how many people phone them day in and day out going, excuse me, do you allow paranormal investigations?
Yeah. Do you think it's one they don't actually want to do it in the first place?
Yeah.
And they're just saying, look, yeah, you come in here, 50 grand. Of course you can come in for 50 grand. But
Yeah.
so, because I imagine some of these places you went to, there must be a spike in the visitors afterwards. Because once they've been on one of these big shows, they make a fortune because they'll be booked every week. Like something like Most Haunted, if they've been there, everyone wants to be there.
Yeah, not only, with Most Haunted, it's not only the fact that they want to obviously have teams in every weekend investigating, but it brings other shows in, because unfortunately most shows, the first thing they do is, oh, that's a pretty cool location and only one of the shows done it, so we'll do it. And when you have, like you say, so many different shows out there, everybody's contacting them, hence all the same locations are repeated on all the shows all the time. I mean, it's good money for them, and it does help them restore the buildings and things, but there's a lot of them out there that, especially hotels, that don't want to be known as a paranormal hotspot because they're so worried that guests won't book into their hotel anymore.
Yeah.
It's the opposite effect. So.
Well, it is. I remember I went to a hotel which I had no idea, and they had a brochure. The Celebrity Hotel in Bournemouth a few years ago had a brochure about the ghost, and they showed the room, and it was had a little plaque on the wall and all that. They were going for it, and I thought that I would have booked there. And my last year holiday was all through Cornwall, and every hotel we stayed in was literally because I'd gone through books and stuff to work out where to go. They wouldn't have got it. They wouldn't. Yeah, I think we all do that. I don't think I would go to a hotel nowadays. You know, if I had to, I would, but I'd much prefer to go to one with a bit of a tail in it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
How do you, how do you work out whether a place is worth going to or not? I know at the moment it's all. I imagine for you it would be just like, if I could get it, because it's it's new. But do you have a particular set of rules?
Yes. So there's actually a lot more that goes into it rather than just, oh, this is a cool looking building with a bit of history. It has to have so many layers of history. And then they'll also say to you, right, so we want a place where the activity has been, for instance, Most Terrifying Places, the show. We want a place that is really cool looking, hardly ever been done before, and people have had the most terrifying experiences of their life. Maybe they've been pushed or scratched, or maybe, they had an apparition walk up right next to them, or they're like, this is what we want. And I'm like, okay, so I can find great location, tick. Great stories and history, tick. But then there's no one to interview because no one's had a terrifying experience there. So, there goes that location. Right, on to the next one then. It's really, really tough. It's not as easy as people think, trying to find entertaining places for TV shows.
Well, I think we've been doing Spooky Isles now for 9 years, and there's so many places that say they're haunted or they have reputations for it, and you want it to be scary because that's what we want, but some are not particularly scary at all because it is just you've heard a creak or there's a tale. It's not necessary. So while it sounds wonderful to have something like the Most Terrifying Places, probably not that terrifying. Even the most ghostly place and the most infamous place.
Oh, I don't know. During the filming of some of these, we've had some really interesting experiences.
Okay.
For one of them that terrified the entire crew, actually, was Drakelow Tunnels. When we filmed that for Most Terrifying Places, we had the psychic medium Jolene Lockwood, who we were interviewing for the show, because she had a really terrifying experience with male spirits that's often seen at Drakelow. Several different people have seen him and described him the same way, wearing a flat peak cap and a blue boiler suit. Now, she was on an investigation with me, actually, and I said to her, look, there is something here that he's not exactly the nicest person, and he does tend to get a bit close. So just keep your guard up, keep an eye on how you're feeling. And she had seen somebody walk down one of the tunnels, so she went to go and follow him to kind of see if it was one of our group. And her knees buckled underneath her, and she was gone. It was quite scary for everyone, I think. When she finally came round, she was in tears, and it was quite a traumatic experience. But then, while we were filming her interview for the show, she turned around and said to us that the guy who attacked me is standing right behind us, listening to this entire conversation. And so we took a few photos. Oh, I got chills.
Oh, no, you just got me chills saying that, yeah.
And in the photograph, you can clearly see Jolene, who's being interviewed, and we're doing the reenactment. So there's an actor standing next to her, acting as her friend, and there's another actor behind the two of them, acting as the ghost, wearing a blue boiler suit. And in the photograph, you can see David, the director, who's filming all of this. But in the background, you can see another person in a full boiler suit and flat peak cap, but you can see through him. And it's crystal clear in the photograph. And, to have that moment where she's just said he stood behind us listening to this conversation, and the photograph to kind of back that up, wearing exactly what she's described, it was a pretty phenomenal moment. The photograph is really interesting.
Like, well, if you can maybe get us a copy of that, we'd love to be able to
Oh,
put it up. We'll show it. We'll show it just in a sec on the screen,
yeah.
and I'll wait to afterwards after I've finished the video to probably get even more creeped out than I am now. So they're clearly you do come up with some gold. Obviously, you come up with gold, but you know, every now and then when you do find something, you really do find something.
Yeah. Yeah.
How is like the question I was going to ask? You're a natural medium. Your mother, your grandmother, and all the other women in your family have done it. So you've obviously got that ability. Where people like myself that are as bad as psychic as a brick, we don't have that. Do you? How can I, as someone who doesn't have psychic ability, be able to do what you do?
Everybody has it. It's just a question of developing it. And I hate to use this person as an example because he's one of my least favorite people in the world. Um, but Zach Bagans, when he first started with Ghost Adventures, he, as you say, was about as psychic as a brick. However, through all the years of investigating, as much as he has, and as many investigations all around the world that he's done, he has become more and more sensitive to it. And I'm not saying that he's a psychic medium all of a sudden, but he is more aware of where there's activity and that sort of thing. And that goes for a lot of investigators in the field. You know, the more you do it, the more you use it, the more open you are to it, the more sensitive you become to it. So there's really good books out there that are good starting points. And I always recommend, there's a book by the psychic medium John Edwards, and it's called Infinite Quest. And the reason I love this book so much is it's just really straightforward, basic explanations of how to develop your psychic abilities or how to become more in tune with it. And it's such a good starting point for any investigator. So
Okay.
yeah, I think everyone can get there.
Okay, well, maybe I'll try that out and see what I could work out. So, just before we go, I'd like to talk about Sage Paranormal, in particular Sage Paracon, and that's getting quite big here in England. Your paranormal convention. Tell us about how that came about.
There was only ever supposed to be one. I'll start with that. So in 2015, I was diagnosed with stage 3 ovarian cancer, and I am a busybody. I am a go-getter, and I have to stay busy. And I kind of thought, I was sitting in hospital, was getting my first chemo session, and I just sat there thinking, I'm not allowed to investigate at all. I can't go to dark, damp buildings. I can't do what I love. I can't see anybody. I can't do anything. And I had a really aggressive form of cancer. And I thought, well, do you know what? If I'm going to go out, I'm going out with a bloody bang. I'm going to do this in style. And to keep myself sane while going through this whole process, I put the first convention together. And I had no idea what I was doing. I mean, I'd been to conventions, but I'd never tried to organize anything on that scale. And I finished my last chemo session 2 weeks later. I was about as bald as Gollum. And we had the paranormal convention. It was fantastic. It was a really fun weekend. Everyone came up to me afterwards and they were like, that was amazing. When's next year? And I went, what? No. What do you mean next year? And so they convinced me to do it, and it kind of grew from there. You know, I started off really small. There were only about 40 or 50 attendees. It was a really tiny event. All I really wanted was to have a really exclusive weekend of people who are so passionate about the paranormal and want to learn in one place at one time, so that they can network and just, you know, create this whole new network of friends, not only people to go investigating with, but people that support each other's small businesses, that go away on holidays, that, you know, just really good friends. And each year it's just gotten a little bit bigger. I've capped it at 150 attendees. I will not go bigger than that because it is such an exclusive weekend. We do have some of the most well-respected investigators and mediums from around the world who really have a wealth of knowledge to share, that we fly in from all over. And it's a very VIP event. It's bang for your buck. I crammed as much as I possibly can into it.
So when is the next one? I know everything's sort of up in the air at the moment because of this thing we're going through, but is there a next date for it?
Yes, so it's the 5th to the 8th of November, and it's always at Coombe Abbey Hotel in Coventry, which is a magnificently haunted hotel. It's
Okay.
wonderful. And we are the only people allowed to investigate Coombe Abbey because I host the convention there. And it's easy to remember. Remember the 5th of November. Coombe Abbey actually has ties to the gunpowder plot. It used
Cool.
to be Princess Elizabeth's childhood home, or princess then. And so that's kind of largely where a lot of it went down. And so we're doing the investigation on the 5th of November, kind of see if we can tie it all in.
That'll be awesome.
Yeah.
What I'll do is I'll make sure we put our put the link there if anyone would like to attend that, and of course links to your Sage Paranormal in general. I'm still getting creeped out by the bloke in the boiler suit. I mean, you know.
I have another photograph that might interest you that was taken at Warwick Castle. Actually, I took the photograph, and I didn't notice that there was anyone else in the photograph until I got home, and I was kind of going through my phone because I was hosting a convention at Warwick Castle in 2016, and so I'd been walking through during the day just seeing the size of the rooms and where the wax figures were and that sort of thing before the investigation. And I'd taken a photo of a sign at the end of the bed in the Kenilworth bedroom. When I got home and I looked at it, there's a full-bodied apparition stood in the window behind me, and I contacted the castle, who checked their CCTV footage, which shows that I'm alone in the room.
Okay, well, again, I want the first one, and I want this one. We'll put up on the screen, and
Yeah.
I think we're going to stop it there because I think you could be talking about for 3 hours on
Definitely.
one after the other. So we're going to just have to get you back. So you've been a very entertaining guest, and I look forward to talking again. Again, so it's Sage Paranormal, Sage Paracon. It's happening in November. We'll put the link in the description, and we'll continue this conversation another time. So thanks very much for MJ. It's been great. You take care of yourself and keep safe. All right. See you. Bye bye.